I'm going to briefly go into a little overview of Hostfully, very brief, and then we're going to get on with the show today. So whether you're a Hostfully customer or not, Hostfully's been around for 6 years now. We manage over 50,000 properties. They get over 1 million travel reviews a month. Over 500,000 recommendations have posted, and we are now up to 82 countries that we do business in. Hard to believe, but in 6 short years that we are a global company. We have elite partnerships with the 3 largest channels, Airbnb, Booking.com, and Vrbo. And we have won a number of awards in this industry, knock on wood. It's great to get recognized by your peers, and we appreciate that. We continue to evolve the Hostfully platform. It continues to get better and better every month. And if you haven't checked us out, we hope that you'll do that in the future. A little bit more. So diversity, equity, and inclusion are super important at Hostfully. We actually have employees in 9 different countries. And so everything that we do is all about diversity, equity, inclusion. We even won an award a couple years ago from Verma for just that. We're also committed to protecting our environment. We tend to do business with companies that are also concerned about being carbon neutral and protecting the environment that we all live in. And finally, our core values are always around customers first. Relationships always matter. The people that we hire are passionate about the short-term rental industry, and we want our employees to be empowered in the communities in which they live. So that's our creed. We try to live by it the best we can. And a little bit more about Hostfully. We have 2 products, the property management platform and the digital guidebooks. These 2 platforms are sold separately, but they do integrate together. So if you're interested in one, you don't have to have the other, and vice versa. But they do share information and pass information, and together they make quite a nice 1-2 punch to help you manage your businesses. Platform, pricing management, as well as a number of dynamic pricing partners, including our guest today, help our customers manage pricing. Channel management, we have up to 20 different channels that you can turn on. We have a central calendar that brings together all of those different channels so you don't get double bookings. We have an intuitive 2-way inbox and messaging center. We have partnered with the 3 best payment processors in the industry in Stripe, PayPal, and Vacation Rent Payment. We have a dynamic reporting platform and custom reporting capabilities, and a super popular mobile application that just continues to get better and better. So that's a little bit about Hostfully and some of the features of our platform. And then, as I mentioned, the digital guidebooks platform, you can see a quote there by one of our customers. Hostfully Guidebooks provide a great experience for thousands of our guests, saves us hours of time, great guest experience, mobile responsive, and easy to use. Okay, Monique, I am going to now turn this over to you. I'm super excited to hear your presentation today. It's, as I mentioned, it's a good time to dive into the latest and greatest with PriceLabs, and especially in light of what's going on in the industry. And with that, I am going to turn it over to you.
Cool. Well, thank you again for having me, Hostfully team. I'm super excited to be partnering with you guys. As you can see in the last bullet point, I personally am a Hostfully user. My husband and I manage a short-term rental in Vermont. We've been with Hostfully for over a year. We've been using the guidebooks and the property management platform. So I love getting to work with a company that I personally believe in myself. I've been at PriceLabs now for almost 2 years, and I am the solutions consultant for the Mid-Atlantic, Northeast, and Canada. So I have a pretty big territory on my plate, which makes things really fun because there's so many different markets within that territory. As I just mentioned, I'm a host myself, and I kind of found my passion in the industry by becoming a host. I didn't really think that hospitality was something that I would really enjoy and get behind so much, but my mind was quickly changed when I saw how happy people were after they were coming to stay at our cabin, and just by seeing like how much my own life improved after getting a cabin that I could kind of like share with people. So yeah, I'm looking forward to kind of going over some strategies to kind of help everyone navigate these downturns today. I know a lot of you are probably feeling it, and I want to make sure that we walk away from this webinar with some actionable items that you can follow, whether or not you decide to use a dynamic pricing software, right? So be prepared to take notes, take screenshots as needed, and ask questions in the Q&A, and we'll try to get to all of them at the end, all right? Perfect. Before we dive into the actual content of the presentation, I'm going to give you a quick overview of PriceLabs, and then I'm going to cover some Labor Day insights from some of the different markets within the US. I chose these markets because they are historically some of the more popular markets for Labor Day vacations. Your area may or may not be on here, but all of the information that we show you within each market, you'll be able to pull within your own PriceLabs account if you have one, or if you decide to sign up. After we go over those insights, I'm going to go over the actual steps that you can follow in order to optimize your pricing and minimum stay restrictions, as well as do some like of your own market analysis. So we'll cover all that a little bit further down. All right. Cool. So who is PriceLabs? So we are a revenue management software and dynamic pricing solution for all sorts of short-term accommodations. So that would include short-term rentals, vacation rentals, apart hotels, motels, boutique hotels, anything that kind of falls under that short-term stay, PriceLabs is able to help price. We've won a couple Shorties awards. We've been nominated for several Skift awards. We actually just got nominated for another in the last 24 hours, so that's super exciting. We got our start back in 2014, so we're approaching the 10-year mark, and we're currently pricing over 400,000 listings every day in over 100 countries. We have over 100 integrations, so, you know, most of you are probably using Hostfully. That's probably how you found out about this webinar, but we do integrate with several other softwares as well. We are also live in 5 different languages. So English, Spanish, French, Italian, and Portuguese. And we are coming soon in German. And then we also have a global company. So I don't know off the top of my head how many countries exactly we're in, but I can tell you, like I said, I'm in New Jersey. My colleague Adam that's here is in Idaho. We have team members throughout North America. We have team members in South America. We have team members in Spain, Portugal, India, Philippines, and a lot of other countries. And I'm definitely drawing a blank on many of them. We're over 200 people now, so we've grown quite a bit, hence why it's a little hard for me to keep up sometimes. Down to our core products. So dynamic pricing is what we got our start with. That's going to be your algorithm where we're automatically updating your prices every single day. We also have portfolio analytics, which is going to allow you to do analysis on your own listings performance. I'll talk a little bit about that today as well as the market dashboards. Market dashboards and the information that we can pull from there is the main focus of some of the things that I'm going to cover today. That's where you'll be doing a lot of your market research. They're especially helpful if you are newer to a market, you have a newer listing, and you kind of want to see what the market has historically been like and how it's starting to trend for the future. Your market dashboard is definitely the place to go. You can create custom comp sets, compare your own pricing to the market, lots of things that you can do with all that market data. And then we did just launch a revenue estimator a few months ago. The revenue estimator allows you to do just that, plug in an address, and we'll spit out an estimate of what we expect that home to earn from the 25th percentile all the way up to the 75th percentile. Within the revenue estimator, you do also have the ability to create custom comp sets. So if you're looking at a property and to invest in, and you know you're going to add certain amenities, you can go right in there, add those amenities to the comp set, and then see how much that improves your revenue. All right, so here's where I'm going to start the market overviews. I'll explain Orlando a little bit further in detail. I'm going to breeze through the next three, so just be ready to take screenshots if they're applicable to you. And then I'm going to end with Myrtle Beach and go more in depth in the Myrtle Beach performance, because that's the example market that I'm going to use for some of the actionable items. So just bear with me here. All right, so in Orlando for Labor Day, what we're seeing in the overall market is that booked nights are declining in 2024 compared to last year. The first chart that you're seeing are the 1 to 4 bedroom units in Orlando, and then the second chart are the 5 to 9 bedroom units. You can see that almost all of those metrics are down year over year, with the exception of occupancy in the larger bedroom homes. And that most likely is being driven by that date a little further out. It's kind of small on the screen, but I think that date further out looks like to be sometime in November. That's really driving occupancy, where it's pacing way ahead of last year. In both the 1 and 4 bedrooms and the 5 and 9 bedrooms. But for the 5 to 9 bedrooms, we see that it's pacing way ahead. So in general, book nights declining a little bit. For the 1 to 4 bedroom homes, we're expecting the occupancy in 2024 to 2025 to roughly remain the same as 2023 to 2024. That black line at the top is showing us what the final occupancy was for each of those months. Keep in mind, I made this presentation, I did most of it back in July, so we're seeing numbers as of like the last week of July. But looking forward, we're pacing on par with the prior year. So the red line is where we are at as of today when I made the presentation. Same time today compared to same time last year. So the same time last year is that gray dotted line. So you see those roughly overlaying each other. So we can pretty safely assume that, provided nothing drastic changes, we'll probably end up with roughly the same as we were last year. This is the same chart for the 5 to 9 bedroom homes. Looks like 5 to 9 bedroom homes, so those larger homes, are starting to outpace the market as of the same time last year. So looks like larger homes are more popular in the Orlando market. And then the last charts that we'll review for each market are going to be the booking window and length of stay. Oftentimes, these are really overlooked metrics, but they're really, really important to know, especially based on the season. So all of these screenshots are coming from the market dashboards, and I pulled out the median booking window for Orlando, which is that first chart there, and then it's broken down by month. You can see how the booking window fluctuates by month. So it's not stagnant year over or month over month. The length of stay is pretty stable. Looks like it's really around 3 nights for most of the year. We get a couple months where the length of stay has dropped. Looks like that's probably shoulder season. So September and November. And it looks like it repeated the same thing in the spring. What would that be? That would be May. So yeah, both really important metrics to know when we're looking at how you're pacing, right? The reason is because you might feel like you're pacing behind, but in reality, we still haven't hit your usual booking window. So I'll cover a little bit more of that further down in the presentation. Looks like the Labor Day holiday is having a little bit of an impact on the booking window. The booking window is on average 1.6 times longer than the rest of the month for the Labor Day weekend, and the length of stay is slightly higher with an average increase of 2.4. Cool, so I'm going to quickly click through Key West. Feel free to take those screenshots. Book nights appear to be unchanged year over year, so pacing the same. That's a good thing. Occupancy for smaller homes, 1 to 4 bedrooms, is probably going to drop next year compared to this year. But occupancy for the larger homes seems to be increasing. So again, another market where the larger homes are outperforming the smaller homes. And then the higher lead times and length of stays are apparent here. So length of stay is actually super stable in this market. You can see across the board, the average length of stay is right at 3 nights. But the lead time definitely fluctuates and peaks for winter months. So it looks like winter months have historically had the longest lead time, which makes sense. Again, we're seeing pretty much the same impact for Labor Day weekend as we did for Orlando, with a slight increase to the booking window as well as a slight increase to the length of stay. All right, Honolulu. Book nights in Honolulu are actually declining for both the larger homes and the smaller homes. Again, just going to breeze through, so take those screenshots. Occupancy is increasing a little bit for the future, though, so that does give us a little bit of hope. Looks like starting in November into December and January, we're pacing a little bit ahead of where we were at the same time last year, so that's a good thing. For the larger homes, looks like we're all over the place. The next few months, we're pacing a decent amount behind. Then we start to pick up, but then we fall behind again, then we pick up. So you can kind of see there's a little bit of volatility in this market for the larger homes. So to be determined whether or not they end up on par with that last year. I guess only time will tell, but we can easily take a look at the booking window to kind of keep track of where we would expect to start seeing those reservations come in. It looks like the month of December historically has the longest lead time. Although previously July and August also had high lead times, but 2022, we have to keep in mind that's COVID years. So we take those numbers with a grain of salt, right? But yeah, this lead time right here indicates nice long lead time for most likely Christmas. And we're still outside that window. So we'll see how Honolulu ends up performing. Ocean City, Maryland, not too far from me. Book nights grew year over year compared to last year for both large and small homes. Occupancy overall is growing for the 1 to 4 bedroom segment, as well as for the 5 to 9 bedroom segment. And then here is your data for this market for the median booking window and the average length of stay. You can actually see that here in the winter and the shoulder season, the lead time actually drops drastically, as well as there's some somewhat significant differences in the average length of stay. A lot of these markets are probably driven by, or a lot of these reservations are probably driven by like longer, like week-long reservations in these more historically traditional vacation rental markets. So that could be one of the contributing factors. All right, and finally, Myrtle Beach. Pay attention here because this is where we're going to start using some of this data as an example for how to take action going forward, especially for the 1 to 4 bedroom segment. All right. So year over year, book nights have increased for the 1 to 4 bedroom segment in Myrtle Beach. For the larger segment, it's pacing behind. Book nights are down by 18%. Occupancy overall is only down by like 2%. The listing count is down for the larger homes, whereas it's up for the smaller homes. And I kind of cover this in one of the future slides, but keep that in mind. So demand is definitely down for the larger homes, while it's kind of significantly up for the larger home or for the smaller homes. Here is the pacing chart for the 1 to 4 bedroom units. It's slightly behind for this year, but that doesn't shock me. Booking windows have been getting shorter, and we'll see that on the 2 slides from now. Here we are for the larger homes, pacing slightly ahead, but again, the overall occupancy isn't that high, especially over the winter months for the larger homes. Here is the length of stay and lead time. So you can see there's a pretty, it's a pretty stable, like up and down, where you can clearly see where the longest lead times are and where the shortest lead times are. Again, 2022 kind of being the exception, given the fact that it was COVID and people were a little more hesitant to travel out of the country. So there was a lot more domestic travel than travel abroad. Again, the Labor Day impact is roughly the same for the Myrtle Beach market. That doesn't really surprise me. I know in the Northeast, it's very weather dependent. And I think that people here are they kind of wait to book because they want to see if the weather's going to be nice, right? Who wants to go to Myrtle Beach or any beach destination really when it's just going to rain the whole time? And then you can pretty clearly see that the length of stay is a whole day longer on average in the summer than it is in the off season. All right, so here's where we're going to jump into what to do when your market has slowed down. The first thing that we're going to do is use historical data to predict what happens next, and then we're going to figure out how to respond. So first, we need to understand the supply and demand in any given market. Now, again, these screenshots are all from market dashboards in the supply and demand section, as well as the KPIs section. So supply and demand is where we're getting the active listings and the average bookings per listing. And then the KPI section is where you can find the total book nights. So overall, supply and demand for Myrtle Beach. Supply is up. Demand is slightly up during the peak season, but it really dips in the off-peak season. The total booked nights have increased during the peak season, so it is kind of keeping up with that increase in supply. But what we want to look at is the shoulder season. So for September and October, historically, the average number of bookings per listing in September has been only 2. And the average number of bookings for each listing in October has been less than 2 over the last 2 years. So that means for every listing in the market, that's how many bookings on average they're getting for each month. You can see in the bottom right chart, the average bookings per listing, how much higher that number is during the summer. So we also do see in the top right chart that there is a slight decrease in the supply after each peak season, which is good because then the listings that do stay on the market available for rent will be able to garner more of the reservations than if they were competing with that entire supply. But we do also see that, like, look at how much the supply has increased just in the last 7 or 8 months in 2024. All right. So now we've taken a look at supply and demand. Let's take a look at what the average pricing looks like for the 1 to 4 bedrooms. You can see here, ADR goes quite high in the summer months, but historically it drops pretty significantly in the shoulder months and into the off season. Same thing for RevPAR and even more drastically. So the first chart, we're looking at ADR. Now, you can see that ADR for this past summer was actually higher on average than even the year before. So can we predict that the ADR will not drop as low as it did for the years prior in the shoulder season? Maybe. On average, we've been detecting in this market a 30 to 40% decrease gradually. It's a gradual decline in ADR for September and October. But when we look at RevPAR, because each listing is not getting a lot of occupancy for September and October, that RevPAR number is drastically dropping off. So that is down 60% and possibly even more for some of these listings for the month of September and October. If you think back to slide 36 for the overall booking window and length of stay, let me see here. I'll go back to that. So remember, here's that booking window and the length of stay for September, October. We know that the booking window itself has dropped over the last few years. So it's not shown here specifically for the 1 to 4 bedroom units. On that previous screenshot, that included all bedroom counts. But for September of last year, the booking window was 27 days. And in October of last year, the booking window was 23 days. And again, length of stay comes back down to 3 nights in the off season. All right, so that's a lot of data that we just covered. Thank you for bearing with me. I know that this can be very data heavy, but now that we have that data, we can start to take action. So we already did the market insights and benchmarking. Towards the end of the presentation, I will have a list of questions that you can ask yourself to kind of guide you into what market analysis to do that kind of covers the things that we just looked at. But now we can start to look at where your pricing is at and where your minimum stay where your minimum stay requirements are at. All right, so pricing. Keep in mind all of these suggestions should be tweaked, can be and should be probably tweaked to your individual strategy and your goals, especially based on the market. So what's applying to this market may not necessarily apply to your market. Take a screenshot of this because this is kind of the easiest way for you to automate things. Use dynamic pricing, of course. Now, yes, I am biased, but when you think about it, in order to react quickly, if you're not using a software, you're going to have to manually go on Airbnb, Vrbo, Booking.com, anywhere that your listings are listed on, and look at what other people are charging, what nights do they have available, all of those things. You're going to have to do that manually, right? So by using a dynamic pricing tool, you're kind of eliminating that manual work so that you can react a little bit quicker than you normally would be able to. Because of that, you're going to be able to get some time back. That way you can focus on a more holistic approach to revenue management. What does that look like? That would be things like marketing, social media, email lists. All of those things do go into your holistic revenue management. Oops, I'm a little too far. Sorry, I don't know if I went over this section, but this is where I kind of just outlined what the actions would be based on what we found in the market. Hopefully you all took a screenshot, but when we're looking at pricing, I would say consider adjusting your minimum prices for the shoulder season. Potentially drop your overall pricing, but especially that weekend pricing or that weekday pricing, because the weekday occupancy for the shoulder season has historically been low. This is, again, something that you can find in the market dashboard. And then consider starting your last minute discounts a little bit further out. One question that I often get for the last minute discounts, why should I start discounting sooner rather than later if I know that the lead times are shorter? Well, quite simply, when demand is really low, the sooner you have appealing prices to the guests, the more likely you are to book versus someone else's properly. So instead of doing a sharp decline at the end of the booking window, like we're getting down to crunch time, you're 2 weeks out, you're still not booked, you start dropping your prices drastically. No, we don't want to do that because we want to preserve revenue even in the off season. So the sooner you start slowly discounting those rates, the quicker your listing might appeal to people who may be considering travel to your area in the off season. Hopefully that makes sense. If I need to explain it a little bit further, please let me know. The minimum stay optimization is pretty self-explanatory. You're going to want to loosen your minimum stay requirements in your off season. That is something that you can do based on season, which I'll cover in just a minute. Okay, sorry, I went a little out of order, but I did just cover this section. Speaking of minimum stays, why do you want to utilize different length of stay restrictions during different seasons? Well, in the peak season, that there's higher demand, so you can usually generate a longer length of stay requirement. But in the off-peak season, where it's primarily driven by weekend travel, you may not be able to secure those, 4-night, 5-night, or even week-long bookings. So you may want to consider being more flexible. You can set things up based on your operational preference. So you don't necessarily have to do 1-night stays. You can also, on Hostfully, you can actually utilize check-in and check-out restrictions within PriceLabs. So you can control all of that from right within PriceLabs to say like, hey, I don't want to do turnovers on Sundays, for example. So you can still utilize those things in the off season. All right. So when we're talking about how to utilize dynamic pricing and kind of making the process more automated for you, this is the section that I want you to pay attention to. If you've used dynamic pricing before, you're probably familiar with the concept of a base price, thinking of the base price as your average daily rate throughout the year without any fluctuation. The yellow box that's highlighted is all the work that PriceLabs can take off of your plate from you and save you the time from having to do that manually. So seasonality, for example. Seasonality is looking at when is your peak season and when is your off-peak season based off of historical demand trends. We're able to automatically detect that for you. That way you don't have to go in and manually make those adjustments yourself. Same thing for day of week. Same thing for lead time. We automatically can detect when we would expect you to get bookings based on what time of the year we're in. Neighborhood demand is also another thing that we can look at for you instead of you having to like manually go and scrape the internet yourself and comparing yourself to your competitors. We're already going to be looking at, hey, what are the closest 350 listings near me doing in terms of occupancy, in terms of the pricing. And then the last thing that we can automate for you is that internal occupancy. So if you start pacing way ahead and filling up your off season, we have tools within the software that will automatically start applying premiums. That way you can still maximize that revenue once you've hit a certain amount of occupancy. That same setting can also work on the flip side. If we notice that you're, 2 weeks out and you still have 0% occupancy, that there's already settings within the system that will adjust that for you. So those are the automations. However, you still maintain user control. One way is through the base price, because the base price is how we determine where your overall rates sit at. The second thing is the customizations. So there are a lot of customizations within PriceLabs. There's a couple that I want to highlight though. The minimum stay recommendation engine. I'll actually show you a screenshot of what that looks like on the next slide. But basically, we look at what other people are doing for their minimum stays, as well as what the average length of stay is for all the different seasons in your area. And we can give you a suggested minimum stay strategy. You can then tweak that strategy yourself. Say, we're recommending that you do 1-night stays and you don't want to, you can change that. The second setting that I suggest you look at are your market-driven last-minute prices, as well as your market-driven far-out prices. So for both of those, we again are looking at what the market is doing. How far out are people starting to discount their prices, and how much of a discount do they do? And we recalculate that number every single day. So in your shoulder season or your off-peak season, you're going to see us recommending a different last-minute pricing adjustment versus the last-minute prices that we recommend during your peak season. And again, all of this is automated without you actually having to do anything, but we do give you full transparency into all the customizations that are being applied. The last thing that you'll want to pay attention to is the seasonality. So like I said before, in this yellow section, we do detect your seasonality and we can tell when your high season and your low season is. What you have the ability to customize is how aggressively or conservatively we respond to that seasonality. So for example, you want to be really aggressive and get the highest prices that you can during your peak season, and maybe be even more aggressive in dropping your prices in the off-peak season. You might customize your seasonality to the aggressive setting. Whereas if you're a little bit more risk averse and you don't want to go so high in the peak season, and maybe you don't want to go so low in the off-peak season, maybe you set your seasonality to conservative. Again, those are just a few of the customizations, but when we're talking about peak versus off-peak season and what to do when a market is slowing down, those are the things that I would definitely recommend checking out and comparing, how you're performing to the market to make sure that your pricing is in line with everyone else, if not better optimized. Here's a quick screenshot of the minimum stay recommendation engine. You can see here that in this market, we're detecting that the default setting should be a 2-night minimum. We've got gaps able to be filled in with 1-night stays. Again, you don't necessarily need to fill in those orphan gaps with 1-night stays. All of these are customizable. What I want you to pay attention to is this little box, the little black box that pops up, because we automatically detected that there's a different seasonal trend in the month of July. So in the month of July, we see that you can actually increase your minimum stay in this market. So the default profile is really the off-season or shoulder profile that's applying. And then that black box is telling me during my peak season, I can be more aggressive. Okay, this is the section that I want you all to take a screenshot of to remember those questions that you should be asking yourself in order to determine how you're performing against the market, and then what steps you might want to take, right? So how's your pricing and occupancy? When's your high season? When's your low season? Are there any upcoming events that can affect your revenue? Event detection is something that we automatically have in PriceLabs. However, if you don't see an event that you think should be on our calendar, there is a way that you can report that event to us, and we'll take a look and see if it should be added into our algorithm. If your occupancy is down, you're going to want to look at if it's a market problem or just a you problem, or is it both? If the market's down and you're down, then you're really just falling in line with the market. But if the market's not down and you are, then there most likely is something that you can change to get back in line with the market. And then you're also going to want to look at how your competitors are doing. You can create that custom comp set, or even just look in your neighborhood data tab to see a few of your competitors, see exactly how much they're charging, when they're booked, and what their minimum length of stay is, as well as what their cleaning fee is. We've got all of those things right in the neighborhood data tab within your pricing dashboard. These are some screenshots of that neighborhood data tab. So the first two charts are showing you like how your prices compare to the market. So in that first one in the top left, that black line is actually showing me that the listed price for the listing in question is much, much higher than the market. Now, is it warranted? Maybe it's a top of the line, 90th percentile home with all the amenities that you could dream of. But if it's not, that person might want to consider bringing that base price down. That way they're more in line with the market. On the bottom, we're actually looking at a listing whose prices are much lower than what the market is doing. So maybe this is an economy listing. If it is, then great. That listing is priced perfectly. If it's not, then maybe they're underselling themselves. And you'd be able to quickly see on the neighborhood data tab how your occupancy is compared to the market occupancy. And if you're pacing way ahead with your occupancy, especially in the off season, that might be a good sign that you are underselling your listing. And then finally, comparing with the closest competitors. So we have our compare competitor calendar. This is a quick screenshot. We give you a tape chart that goes over, that lists out all the prices for all the competitor listings. We show you with that slash when the listing is booked versus when it's available. And then, like I said, we show you what their cleaning fee is. We show you their cover photo, their description. You can click right on that link and open up the Airbnb tab so you can kind of see, like, are their photos similar to mine? What do they have that I don't? So really easy competitor analysis right in the neighborhood data tab. All right, and finally, the newer, I say newer because AI and machine learning is something that we've been using for years, but a newer feature to us are the AI insights. So how can you use AI to identify the trends in the market? Very easy when you're using PriceLabs. Again, right in the neighborhood data tab, we give you the ability to click Show AI Insights, and we show you two sections. We show you the AI insights for your price analysis, which is going to highlight when the high season is, when the low season is, how is it looking year over year? Are there any dates that stand out that are either ahead or behind? Things like that will all be right in that price analysis. Same thing with the occupancy analysis. Right in the neighborhood data tab, we'll show you, are there any dates that are pacing ahead, any dates that are pacing behind? For example, here, this is a weekend travel market. We've detected in this market that higher demand is available on the weekends than there is during the weekdays. And that kind of should inform how you price your listing. Once you've checked these AI insights, you can then go into your pricing calendar and take a look at how PriceLabs is automatically responding to these insights. If you're happy with it, then great. We've saved you a ton of time. If you feel like you want to be more aggressive or more conservative, there are settings within the system that you can begin to tweak, such as demand factor aggressiveness. That's just one of the many settings that you can adjust right within our system to make things, overall higher, overall lower for those high demand dates. But again, you can easily just have one tab open, the other tab open, and kind of go back and forth and look at, where are these trends happening and what does my pricing look like and am I happy with it? All right, I just spoke for probably a good 35 to 40 minutes straight. So I'm going to open up the floor to questions. Thanks for giving me the stage, guys. Let's see.
Thank you, Monique. That was awesome.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Covered a lot of ground.
What's that?
Covered a lot of ground in a short period of time.
I know. I tried not to make it too data intensive because I didn't want to lose anyone, but really, the data is so important because we shouldn't be flying blind when it comes to adjusting our pricing strategy. We should be relying on accurate data, and a tool like PriceLabs will allow you to do that. That way you can really feel like you're making an informed decision.
Do we have any questions that have been posted?
Yeah, it looks like we do. All right, I'll just read them out and answer them. So Paul asked, does PriceLabs take into account owner hold days so the owner removes the property from the calendar as available? Does PriceLabs know that it isn't an actual booking? It depends on what PMS you're using. If you're using Hostfully, then the answer is yes. We get reservation data with Hostfully, so we're able to see what your actual paid occupancy is. And again, that would be reflected in your portfolio analytics as well as on your pricing calendar. Awesome. Love another Hostfully user. I hope you're all Hostfully users. Let's see. Susan, are the rates for the competitors based on what is showing on their calendar? If so, what if the fees are rolled up in the rent? So that is a great question. And that is something that is actively being played with by a lot of property managers in the industry. The rates that we show on the calendar is what is displayed as their nightly rate. Now, we have no confirmed way to know if there are any additional fees rolled up in that. However, in the neighborhood data tab, which I can go back to this screenshot here, is there a way for me to zoom in on a slide? I don't think there is. So the section in the bottom right, that is the compare competitor calendar. The third column in from the left shows us the cleaning fee. So if you don't see a cleaning fee there, you can probably safely assume that the cleaning fee is being rolled into the nightly rate. We also tell you in the fourth column from the left whether the Airbnb service fee is split by the guest and the host, so where the host only pays the 3% and the guest pays the rest of it, or if it's the host only fee. We'll say split fee or host only. So again, if it's host only, you can assume that those rates are being, or those fees are being rolled into the nightly rate. Hopefully that answered your question, Susan. Any other questions? Oh, okay. Liz, is there a way our PMS will show a strike through or that there is a 20% off discount being given? AKA, does the consumer know they are getting a discount? For example, on Airbnb, there's a strike through when we do the 20% off option. So there's a couple things that come into play when you're doing promotions on Airbnb. So if you've never used a pricing tool before and you do your promotions right in Airbnb, Airbnb does give you certain like marketing benefits depending on how much of a discount you're offering. When you're using a dynamic pricing tool, you do miss out on some of those marketing incentives. However, you still can get strike-through pricing. Strike-through pricing is based off of an average of the pricing over the last, don't quote me on this, but I believe it's the last 30 days. That way, if you artificially increase your rates just for like the future dates and then do a promotion, Airbnb, whether you do it on their platform or on ours, Airbnb won't show that as strike-through pricing because they know that you're artificially increasing your rates to try to get that strike-through pricing. So strike-through pricing will still work if you're running some sort of discount that is lower than your average prices over the last 30 days. But unfortunately, those marketing benefits you would miss out on. However, something that a lot of my customers do is if they want to still utilize those marketing promotions in Airbnb, they will apply a pricing offset, so like an increase. And this is going to be done in Hostfully, and this is actually what I do myself. I do a little bit of a pricing increase for all my prices that go to Airbnb. I want to say I raise it by like 4%. 3% to kind of account for the host fee, and then 1%. That way I have a little wiggle room when it comes to doing promotions and discounts if I ever feel like that's necessary. With that pricing offset, your prices will then show up higher on Airbnb, and then you can go into Airbnb and do some of the custom promotions that will still get you the marketing benefits. Hopefully that helps, Liz. Nico, we have global data. So we have data for all over the world. If you're interested specifically in Austin, Texas, and you have a PriceLabs account, if you've never made a market dashboard before, you should have a market dashboard credit right in your account. You can go ahead and create a dashboard for the Austin, Texas market and kind of see how it's trending for the future. But off the top of my head, I do not have anything prepared specific to Austin, Texas. Javier, hi, how are you? The data in neighborhood data is from which OTA source? By default, we're showing you the Airbnb data there. Most people are listed on Airbnb. Anyone that's on Vrbo is usually also on Airbnb, but you do have the ability to switch it. But most of my users are sticking with the Airbnb data. We do also have the hotel data tab, which shows you the information from booking.com. We cannot get hotel occupancy because of the way it's calculated. We're unable to see essentially like how many nights for each available day are booked at a hotel, but we can see what the nightly rates are, and we show you that in the hotel data tab. Susan, is any of the data provided direct or is it all scraped? So that is a great question, and I'm glad you brought that up. We scrape all of our own data from Airbnb, Vrbo, and Booking.com. Because of privacy, we cannot use our own customers' data in our algorithm. However, we do have a partnership with a company called KeyData that allows us to cross-check what we are seeing in the scraped data versus the data that KeyData has, which is all of their users' confirmed data. So we can easily check on our backend if there's any discrepancies between what we're scraping and what KeyData is showing us. So there are some checks and balances in place. That way we can make sure that the data we're giving you is accurate. Those were great questions. Kudos to you guys. All right, we should have time for this one last question from Liz. is there a way to set a monthly rate by number and not percentage? For example, March is 10,000, April is 12,000 per month. So you're saying you want to earn that much per month? If you're able to just clarify, like, okay, so you want to earn, your revenue goal is 10,000 per month. It's a little bit more manual, but what I would do is take that 10,000, divide it by, you know, the 31 nights in March. You'll get to what your average nightly rate would need to be in order to hit that. But then you'll have to make some adjustments to that, right? So you can apply that using a custom seasonal profile, set that number as the minimum, but you may want to make tweaks to account for weekdays versus weekends, right? Because that really bad at like mental math. But 10,000 divided by 31, you're looking at roughly $322.50 a night. So maybe that $322.50 a night is probably doable on the weekends, but it might not be doable during the week. So you would want to kind of shift and maybe move some of that revenue towards your weeknight or towards your weekend rates versus your weeknight rates. It is a little bit more manual to do it that way, but it is possible using custom seasonal profiles. And custom seasonal profiles are just a great tool to utilize in general in seasonal markets because it's going to allow you to tweak what your minimum prices are as well as your minimum stay requirements based on whether we're in your peak season, off-peak season, shoulder season, et cetera. You can have like different profiles for all of those. Liz, if you're kind of stuck on that, feel free to open up a support ticket. Our team can definitely walk you through that and kind of give you the tools for how to apply that using the custom seasonal profile. Yeah, of course.
All right. Any last minute questions? Nope. Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I'll just close up here. I made a couple of notes during your presentation, Monique. You know, I talked to a lot of companies that are looking to, at their first property management software, or maybe they're changing from another one. I can tell you there's not a PMS on the globe that can do what PriceLabs does. And that's why you see all the PMSs partnering with the dynamic pricing companies. As you guys can all see, there's a lot more than just comparing your competitors and what they're offering. So, you know, I hear sometimes people say, oh, I can do this on my own. I can see there's a lot more to this, as we all can see. And no one is better at this than dynamic pricing companies like our partner PriceLabs. There is a lot to this. PMS could never build this. So that's number one. Number two, with the downturn that we're all experiencing, and there's more competition, there's more pressure on a host to find alternate ways to monetize the existing stays that they do get. And from Hostfully's standpoint, that comes in two formats. Number one, got to have a direct booking site. Once you get a customer, you want them to come back, you got to have them book directly you got to have them book directly with you next time. Otherwise, you're going to keep paying commissions to the OTAs and they're going to eat up all your profits. So direct bookings are critical to your success, and they allow you to get through these slow times because you've made more money on your direct bookings. The second thing is that our digital guidebooks, and I think we're the only property management software that has digital guidebooks, offer several different ways for you to make extra money. Everything from promoting your direct booking site to the marketplace that allows you to monetize things like cleanings and ride to and from the airport and, renting of canoes or bicycles or whatever it is you want to try to monetize, you can list all of those in our guidebooks and you can monetize them. We also have a partnership with Viator, where you get commissions on any of the tours that they offer in your local market. So that's the second thing, is monetizing your existing customers is critical towards to getting through these difficult times. Third thing, Hostfully does and has planned a lot more of these integration partner webinars for the remainder of the year. Please stay tuned to our website and our LinkedIn page and any of your socials that you follow us on. We've got some exciting things and some exciting announcements that we'll have for the remainder of the year. And anybody that attended today, and even if you didn't attend today, you will get a copy of today's presentation. So with that, we're closing right at 4 o'clock Eastern time. Thank you, Monique and Adam. We appreciate your partnership more than you guys know. And if you're a Hostfully customer and you joined us, thank you so much for your partnership as well. And if you're not a Hostfully customer, we'd love an opportunity to show you what we can do for you. With that, I wish everyone a good rest of your day, and we'll see you on the next one.